M&J Video Games and Collectibles. Sport and non-sport cards, wrestling items, autographed items. We buy, sell, and trade. M&J Video Games and Collectibles, located at 1049 Queen Street, Southington, Connecticut. Call us at 1-860-479-9223 or 860-93-GAMES. M&J Video Games and Collectibles.
Hi, it's John from Under the Table Hot Sauce. I'm here with my friend, the star of the show, Jimmy Farrow.
Yeah, what's up, JB?
Nah, nothing.
It's been a hot summer, and for all your barbecue needs, you can go to underthetablehotsauce.com. 13 unique flavors to choose from, created and bottled in a Long Island kitchen. Underthetablehotsauce.com. Let's go chow, JB.
Let's do it.
All the flavor, twice the burn.
I mean,
Don,
I don't even like bringing it up on shows. So
why don't you take us back to how you met your partner, Kevin Castle, not your wife, your partner on the show, Kevin Castle. When does it all start with you deciding, you know what, let me go video with everything? I mean, you're doing the hotline obviously first, and how does the show come about in your relationship? How did you meet Kevin?
Well, I was doing my hotline up until 2005. I actually, in 2005, there was both. We were doing podcasts, and I was still doing my daily hotline report. And my hotline, even going back to 1997, people could leave messages. I always love to hear feedback. I'd love to hear people, agreeing, disagreeing, getting different things. Like I said, if I didn't have voicemail on my hotlines, Louis Dangerously from ECW would never reached out to me. Shane Douglas would have never reached out to me for XPW stuff, with bus trips. Even the Hardcore Homecoming pay-per-view that they did, Shane Douglas actually wanted me to do the bus trips for that, but the guy Mike Johnson and PW Insider screwed me, which is a whole nother story. But the thing is, people would always be able to leave messages. So there was a guy that would always leave messages, and his name was Kevin from Sheepshead Bay. And he would leave comments about what I said, and I would shout people out. I'd be like, on the next show, I'd be like, to Kevin from Sheepshead Bay, he feels that, that Undertaker should do this. And after a while, I found that I'm always shouting him out because his comments I either really agreed with or I really disagreed with. So after a while, I was doing a hotline with Mad Zombie and Brian Damage. It was the Blackheart Sports Entertainment hotline. And Brian Damage broke away. Timmy Arson, God rest his soul, the ECW Zombie, was also a host with us. He couldn't come on all that often. And Mad Zombie had a lot of issues. He was one scary dude. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he was one scary dude outside of wrestling. I'll tell you everybody a really quick story. You'll appreciate this. Back in the 90s, an adult video came out involving the wife of Tommy Dreamer, Beulah McGillicuddy. And it was from Penthouse Video. If anybody remembers the Silver Bullet, it was legendary in the late 90s, mid to late 90s. Mad Zombie, we used to tape trade, and that's how we started doing a hotline together. And he was selling tapes on eBay, plus at ECW events, he would show up with all of these wrestling tapes outside the building and would sell tapes while people were waiting to come in. So he started selling copies of the Beulah porn. That's exactly how you would label it, the Beulah porn. And he was getting $15, $20 a pop, and that video had no audio. The video was grainy. I still have a copy somewhere in my garage. And legend has it that Bully Ray, him and someone else, brought Mad Zombie into a bathroom in the Elks Lodge. And Tommy Dreamer came in there as well, and they told him, like, you're not selling that fucking video anymore. He's like, hey, no problem, no problem, no problem. And then he just went back to selling it anyway. But once I got involved with the XPW stuff, I started breaking away from them because Mad Zombie was really, really scary dude. He was a really scary dude. So that's not someone you want to cross. So since I was used to having Mad Zombie and Brian Damage on, I wanted to have someone else instead. And there was this other kid, Joey, that 924, that was in a wheelchair, that really was smart about wrestling. I said, yeah, let's just have a show one night. Come on. and we offered it to Kevin also. He came on, and basically it was Anthony the Funker, Kevin from Sheepshead Bay, Joey from the Bronx, and someone else. And we just chatted about wrestling, and it was a hit. I mean, and it was interesting because we had one Irish Italian, one fully Italian, one Puerto Rican, and one black guy. And then we ended up with another Spanish guy. And then we ended up with a Jewish guy. So we called ourselves.
I was going to say, where's the Jew?
Yeah, we had the Jewish guy too. And we called ourselves the Minority Report. And that's how it took off. So Kev started coming on as a caller in 2004. That's really the first time we started doing together. And then we had a falling out with the two other hosts, and it was just me and Kev. So we were like, what should we call ourselves? So ultimately we called ourselves, this is 2004, 05, because 05 is when I started doing a Don Tony name because of the incident at the USA Pro Wrestling show with the cannolis. So since I was Don Tony, and he always called himself Kevin Castle because he was in the heavy metal scene, and he used to manage a rock club called Castle Heights on Roosevelt Avenue in Corona, Queens. So he was Kevin Castle. I was Don Tony. So we called it the Don Tony and Kevin Castle Show, and 20 years later, we're still doing it.
And we need a now. Why won't Castle come on video?
He won't.
Well, I'll say this. I'll say this.
Huh?
5 years ago, we really started not enjoying doing the shows. I think it was a reflection of wrestling also. AEW was not around yet. You know, wrestling was really starting to, get bland. And we started falling out of favor with each other. In fact, for a brief time, we even called ourselves the Don Tony and Kevin Castle Hour, because we just wanted to do an hour, we didn't want to stop doing it, but we would always just complain about the same things. And if we're going to be a complaining show, then we might as well just quit. So at the time, I was like, all right, what can I do to challenge myself to kind of make this to the next level again? And I remember about 10, 11 years earlier, we were going to do YouTube. But at that time, we really didn't have the equipment. I didn't know anything about video. So and we didn't want to pay somebody to do video stuff. So we just decided, you know what, let's stick to what has made us successful in what we do. Let's just keep audio. So when I went to go to YouTube about 4 years ago, I had originally asked Kev, I said, hey, you want to do video? And he's like, yeah, I'll do it. And we were going to bring on this other guy, Mish, also, who was going to help us behind the scenes because he was a very smart guy doing, he knows his shit. And for about 9 months, we were gradually preparing to do video. So, and I'm not trying to make an excuse for Kev. Kev still uses a landline phone. He still uses very primitive stuff. He's not a tech guy.
Jimmy, that sounds like you, buddy.
Yeah, so the idea of him, I was going to send him a webcam, and I was going to send him this, and we would, this is a true fact. This guy Mish actually had even sent him a video on YouTube, step by step, how to do this, do this, and he got very frustrated with it because he felt like how I felt 10 years earlier, that it was just very overwhelming. So I had said to him early on, I'm like, look, we don't have to all do video. We're not doing it to show our faces. We don't have the faces for TV. I mean, I don't think anybody looks and gets aroused at us. So I was like, and I was the one that wanted to go video. I just wanted to maybe do something a little bit challenging to just maybe get that love back, to really want to bang it out every day. And then once I commit, there's no turning back. That's why I'm still doing it, I guess, now on a regular basis, because if I even miss one show, I feel like I'm letting down. Even if it's 1,000 people, I'm letting people down. That's why it is almost never that I miss a week. But I'm the one that pushed the YouTube. He didn't really want to do it. And I had told him, don't worry about it. I did not realize once we launched on YouTube, I did not realize the overwhelming number of people that were like, why are you on video? Why is he not on video? Why aren't you on video? What are you, ugly? What are you, fat? What are you this? And I know what Kev looks like. I have pictures of Kev even now. He's not a bad looking dude. It's just, it's very, very overwhelming. Plus, here's another thing too. He lives in an apartment and their, internet is not the greatest. And, you really need to have, some good DSL. We don't break the bank in what we do here. So there's a lot of things that he would need to do. It's not just simply plugging in a webcam. No joke, for real. I have laying around like webcams and extra things that I could just give away to people. I have a Logitech staring right at me right now. I keep as an emergency backup that I never use. He just never felt comfortable about it, and I don't want to push the issue. So once we went live, then I realized that it was just making it worse because I didn't want it to be pressure and I didn't want it to be overwhelming, and it's exactly what it did. And it just made things less fun. And unfortunately, we had a falling out. And the funny thing is, the falling out we had, Kev doesn't even know this, but it was a total misunderstanding. But I was so mad, and I was like, I'm not even going to fucking tell him. There was one episode that he couldn't show, that he didn't feel well. So what I did was on the thumbnail on YouTube, I had a logo with the Don, Tony, and Kevin Cass show, and I put a red X over it that, we're not doing the show tonight. It's just me. And he interpreted that, like I'm canceling him out. And I totally don't blame him. It definitely did not come across the way I had planned it to be. I just thought, hey, there's no DTKC episode tonight. It's just me because, he's not feeling well. I just put an X over it and it just blew up. And, because we're 50 some odd year old Italians from New York, similar neighborhoods, we're thick-headed. And, he doesn't want to give in and I don't want to give in. And, it just kind of built for a couple of years and there was no talking whatsoever. But I will say this, after a while, we started talking again. And Mike, you pushed us to get together again. And, one thing that we always said that we're not going to do shows just to do shows. We're going to do shows because we like to talk to each other, because we still love wrestling. We still love laughing with each other, not at each other. And I think we started laughing at each other. And we both agreed that, all right, if we do shows again, it's for the right reasons, not because everybody wants it. And January 29th of this year, we just said, you know what, let's bring it back. And there's still a lot of damage that is being repaired because there's a lot of people that put a lot of time, money, and energy in what we do. And they felt that, hurt. They took it personal. I mean, I can't believe even on Google now, when I type in Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle to see if anybody's talking about us or if there's a buzz, the first result that comes up is Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle split. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe. I mean, a lot of people who are newer don't realize that we blew away Cornette's numbers back in the day. And nothing against Jim Cornette or Brian List. They were probably one of the few that I really, really enjoy now, even though I don't agree with everything that they say. But, we used to be the number one show across the net. And I look back on it, I'm like, man, why was I such an immature asshole? If I didn't do some of but I had to learn the right way, not fix a problem because I know it needs to be fixed. I have to fix a problem because I want the problem to be fixed.
Tony, we all have roads we have to go down in order to get where we're going. In case anyone doesn't know, we're talking to Don Tony, who's one half of the great Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle show. First off, you've got to recognize, I think that you sit back a little bit and you take this very, I don't want to say passive aggressive, it's not the right word. But you guys you guys got to give yourself props for what you've done for the industry, because you have done a lot for the industry. There's all different ways to affect an industry, and you have done that, both of you guys, and it's not over yet. I really feel like your show is one of the great shows that has this opportunity to really reach some heights, and that's why I'm glad you guys got back together. Again, I look at my partner Jimmy. I think Jimmy is an ultimate talent, and I think this show also has those kind of legs.
Absolutely.
But that all being said, again, you should be very proud. I keep saying it, what you've done, what your partner has done, and I'm glad you guys have gotten back together. And you know what? I tell Jimmy all the time, you take all these different roads, you get to where you're going eventually, either good or bad, right? You should have done this. Maybe I should have done that. In the end result, you guys will be successful. Question.
I want to just say one thing to you also, and this is deep for me. I get it. You know, we were not in the business. You know, over the years, we've made friends with people in the business, people that are on TV today. I have some decent memories. I'm very proud of some of the things, some of the causes, some of the relationships I've built, some of the people I've helped. The reason why coming on here means more than you will really ever understand is because Kevin and I have been doing this pretty much for 20 some odd years. I've been doing it since 97. And I feel in 2024, and it's just a reflection of society across everything, I just feel not that I'm not appreciated, but you're the only guys that reached out that said, hey, you want to come on? I've had people who have 10 times the viewers that I do that said to me, hey, DT, when AEW comes to Forest Hills, come on, let's all get together. Yeah, I'm down. And then they come to Forest Hills and they're inviting everybody to all these parties. And I never got one email or a DM. And it's like, wow, either we're really good and people are just jealous, or because we're so older now, like we don't get any respect at all. Like you said about the Dave LaGreca's and everyone else. I know, and no one will ever admit it, but I know there's a lot of shows out there that copy our style, what we do, this and that, and will not name drop us once as if we never existed. So when I get something like this, it's like, man, that's pretty fucking cool.
Because, Jimmy, and you need to speak to this because you'd be perfect to say it. First of all, Dave LaGreca's smart. I would shit all over you too. I wouldn't give you a pop because you let you in the door, he's in trouble. These are facts. I'm not an anti-LaGreca guy, but I do know talent, and I know what you and your partner have, right? And it is talent. Sure. So I get it. Don't prop you up. But I think you will bust through the door. But, Jimmy, you've spoken about this a million times. Please, go ahead, say it.
Well, it's ironic to me. Well, you know what? Don's already busted through the door. Like he said all those years ago, he had numbers that would make some of these guys that are considered big time now blush. So keeping that in mind, the thing I can't shake about New York, and I don't know how Don feels about it, what really, really gets under my personal skin is that the guys from New York that have radio shows are the ones that will help you the least. So I find it very interesting that the closer you get to your own backyard with those in the business, the more they pretend you don't exist, but they're clearly lifting from you. Any thoughts on the New York scene in general? Because that shit pisses me off.
I will say this. I know there's a lot of people that work very hard at what they do, and I will always commend hard work. If somebody works really hard to get what they're getting, I commend them for it. There are people who claim to be our friends that we know, at the end of the day, it's cutthroat. And I know for a fact we make points about wrestling. And, instead of just saying, hey, I heard the DT and KC said this is this, you know what? I disagree with this. Instead, it'll be indirect cheap shots, not mention our names, like throwing it out there to make us look stupid. And people aren't stupid. They can figure it out. I realize that you want respect, you give respect. And I live by now, like I treat people like I want to be treated. That wasn't always the case. 10 years ago, I probably was them in a lot of ways. I mean, I'll say this straight up. We were talking the other day about Andrew Zarian. We were talking about Fightful. We were talking about this. I've had people over the last couple of years that I'll give him credit for something. And I brought up Andrew Zarian because he's the first one that came to mind. I gave him credit for something. And he sent me a DM. He's like, oh, now you're cool with me? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, you used to rip me apart. You used to say a lot of shit about me. I'm like, really? What? And I'm like, and then I go back and listen. I'm like, holy shit. That's why I was joking with Mike. Even the teaser for today, I said, some people think there's going to be a hit job tonight because people have said to me in the past, like, you used to say shit about them also. I'm like, I don't remember this. I think back in the day, I think I got a little too cocky for the success, and we used to just rip people just to rip them. So, I kind of am guilty of being a dick back in the day also. So the people of today, I say to myself, to answer your question, I know who's doing it, but I also know sooner or later it's going to catch up to them because they're not as smart as they think they are. And I'm not saying like we're smarter than them, but they're not as smart as they think they are. And when shit blows up in their face, it blows up bad. And, they let them enjoy their fun for the next year, 3 years, 5 years. But when it doesn't go well, that's when you hear, oh, I can't do a show this week. I got to do this. Oh, I can't do, I had technical difficulties. People will start seeing a pattern that, they make excuses for not doing shows because they're losing, their core audience. One thing about us, and this is why I don't get upset anymore, because I know that who tunes into us is our core more than anything else. We have a Patreon that is maybe 1/5, 1/6 the size it used to be. But I can honestly say 80% of the people on the Patreon have been there since day one, 7 years ago.
Right.
So we have that core loyal group, and that's who I care about.
Also, think about the most important part of this, and I'm serious about this. Think about how many people's lives you have changed. Let it be one. And I've said this to Jimmy. We've had people reach out and said, thank you. You saved my life, whatever. That's probably the most important part, and I'm sure you guys have done that for many. Listen, we're almost out of time.